There is nothing better than opening night dubs as the Carolina Hurricanes defeat the New Jersey Devils 6-3 in their home opener to go 1-0 on the season. Huge nights from Seth Jarvis and Keandre Miller. We're going to talk about all of that and more on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Nerds, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. What an absolute night for the Canes as they take their first win of the season on opening night, defeating the Devils 6-3 on the back of a Seth Jarvis, Keandre Miller two-piece as they scored 2 goals each in the win. Alexander Nikishin, gets his first NHL point, and there is a lot to go over in this win. But before we jump into that opening night game, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we're just going to automatically kick this off talking about Keandre Miller because, my goodness, what a night, what a debut for him with the Carolina Hurricanes. Played in no preseason games, basically got almost all of his reps during training camp, and you're kind of wondering, how is his night going to be, the very limited amount of time, and he comes in and scores 2 goals, scores the first power play goal for the Hurricanes on the season, which was very huge to them because they made them go 1 for 4 on the night with the penalty kill going 2 for 2. But that was a very big one for him to score a power play goal. And you could just tell he already felt like he can fit in with this roster right from the jump, because when you look at what he did overall in this game, it wasn't like the Hurricanes really kind of, sheltered him or, try to see, give him, how is he going to be? He came right in and did the job. 19 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time, 31 shifts. Of course, got the power play goal, 4 shots, 1 block, 2 hits, and had 2 giveaways in that game. Did have a penalty, but he finished the night +1 with 2 points. What a debut for him. This is what Rod Brind'Amour said about Keandre Miller in his debut. I thought he was exceptional. Take the goals away, even. He was impactful. He hadn't played a game for how many months? He stepped right in and looked like he hadn't missed a beat. Obviously, we're pretty excited to have him. That's pretty huge for the fact that we look at a guy who scored 2 goals in a debut for the Hurricanes. He joined also Morgan Geekie as one of the guys that do it. Shout out to Kane Stats for that. But that is... what a way to make an impact for yourself. First game, like I said, no preseason action, had a mix of some practices here and there, but to come in and already score not 1, but 2 goals, and for the fact that he scored 1 of them on the power play, that was a very huge moment for him because, at the time, the Hurricanes were tied 1-1. Taylor Hall got the first goal of the game, of the season for the Hurricanes. It was 1-0 after the first, and then it was 2-2 after the second. But Miller scored his first goal in the middle of that barrage between him, Dougie Hamilton, and Dakota Glass, and then Keandre Miller, over halfway into the period, scores on the power play thanks to Aho and Blake, and that was a very huge goal because that time he made it 3-2. Of course, the Devils score right away, and we'll talk about the other guys who made some impacts in the game as well. But it's very interesting when you look at Keandre Miller coming into this game because we all know, the Rangers all had a down season last year. A lot of people felt like that he was just not developing where he needed to be, and he made some mistakes last year. And a lot of people are asking, well, was this an overpay for the Hurricanes to trade away a Scott Morrow, a first and a second, to go get Keandre Miller and then sign him to a 8-year, $7.5 million? And people are like, well, that's a lot of money for a guy who had a down season. Can he bounce back and do that? And the thing is, we've seen this story before where you have a team like the New York Rangers go and trade away a defenseman, and they've kind of felt like that maybe he wasn't going to be hitting his ceiling or what they thought he was going to be. He comes to Carolina and automatically makes an impact. We saw that with Brady Shea. And like I said, first game in, you're already putting up 2 goals in your debut, 31 shifts. Yeah, it was 19 minutes and 10 seconds. It by far wasn't the most for the Hurricanes. I think it was like 5th out of the 6 defensemen because of him, he was part of a few power plays, but no PK, and he was still trying to get acclimated. But the fact that he had 31 shifts in this game shows that the Hurricanes really put a lot of faith in him, and knowing the fact that even though it's his first actual game with the Canes, to go out there and do what he did, it gives you a good sense of an indication of where Keandre Miller is at. And yes, it's still the first game. There's still another 81 games to go. And of course, we're still going to get some learning curves and, some, growing pains as the season goes along. But that's a great start for Keandre Miller. And for me, he was the Hurricanes locked in guy of the game. Of course, I'll post graphics about it, when you guys hear this, you'll see it on socials, but we're going to try to do a locked guy in for every game, and that's what it was. He was locked in for the Hurricanes in his debut, scores 2 goals, and he even earned the first star of the game as well. Like, what a way to make his statement in front of the home fans after a long off season where they did most of their signings early on, and then to come in really no games, no preseason games, no knocking off the rust, even had surgery in the off season too. And he comes in and right away makes the impact for the Hurricanes that they need. Because you see them go up 2-1, then he puts them up 3-2. And that, like I said, for the fact that he got the Hurricanes 2 leads in this game, in the second period and in the third period, those are some pretty clutch goals at those times, because that's what you really needed for the Hurricanes. Because, like I said, you get the first goal from Taylor Hall, 4th line guy, and then you get, like I said, Miller scores the 2-1 goal in the second, and then he makes the 3-2 goal on the power play, their only power play goal they scored the entire night. And hey, you know what? You'll take one. Yeah, they're at 25% right now after going 1 for 4, but you'll gladly take a power play goal in your first game to get off that schneid and kind of have a good sense of direction with that. And your PK unit is now 2 for 2 for 100% on the season already. But it's just great to see that Miller already has put in the impact straight away. Rod said it too, and you can just tell everyone's really excited to have him come in. And you can tell for him too, he was really excited after the post game. He's glad that he's on. He's not on the opposite side of it now. That now he's got the Caniacs in his corner, and that's just one way to make a statement, make an impactful hello to the city of Raleigh, where you put in an effort like that. So big game from Keandre Miller. I'm already liking what he's brought. Like he's got the speed. Even during the game too, even when he wasn't scoring, he had some great interceptions. That's why the Hurricanes got him, because of just how tall he is. His wingspan is so wide, and just his reach and size. Like, he had a couple good interceptions in the Hurricanes' defensive zone where he broke up a lot of chances, threw some hits as well, blocked some shots. Like, he is more than advertised for what he did for the Hurricanes. And, you have to feel pretty good about yourself to where you're at. But like I said, it's still game one. There's a long road, long runway to go. But you have to feel good about where you're at for the Carolina Hurricanes and where Keandre Miller is already making a statement impact like that. Another guy who made an impact in this game, Seth Jarvis, because you know why? He's inevitable. We'll talk about him here in a second. on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Well, we talked about Keandre Miller's debut and how impactful he was, and now we're going to talk about Seth Jarvis because, let's be honest, he is inevitable. Very, very huge night for Seth Jarvis, honestly. When you look at his game, obviously scored 2 goals, was a +1, 21 minutes and 12 seconds of ice time, which was the second most for the forwards, 23 shifts, 3 shots, 2 hits, and honestly, I think he rang the post at least 2 or 3 times. The Hurricanes had unofficially 7 hit posts. I think Jarvis had 2 or 3 alone on himself. So if they counted post shots, I think he would have had like 6 shots, honestly. But talk about a very clutch night for him. You could tell he was all over the ice. That first line with him, Aho, and Ehlers were, chemistry was early from the start. You could see those guys linking up passes, making a lot of key plays. And, it just seemed like everything Jarvis threw on net, a post was just in the way, and you kind of feel like he was so due for one, but he kept at it, and then luckily he was able to get, with like less than 3 minutes left, made the game 4-3 after Aho put the puck on net, goes off of Jarvis, and it goes in. And it's like, hey, it doesn't matter how you get it in. If you score, they still count the same regardless if you shoot it perfectly, or it bounces off you, or you get a floater or a greasy goal. Either way, it counts. It doesn't matter. Very clutch for him. You could tell he was pushing all night to score a goal. And when that one finally went in for him, you could tell he was beyond excited for that one. The celebration was magnificent as always. And like I said, it ended up being the game winner because that was the one you really needed. And then not that long after, he was able to put the empty, score on the empty net, ice in the game, put the dagger in, putting the nail in the coffin, however you want to put it, on the New Jersey Devils. Jarvie made it 5-3, basically put the game away, and you kind of feel like, okay, it's done. The Hurricanes are going to win it, and you love to see it. And that's the thing for him is after putting up 67 points last year and still missing 7 games, scoring 32 goals, you kind of felt like going into his 5th season that Jarvis was going to be, coming in ready to go. Because, so we talked about it during the, face-off inside the NHL docuseries that he will drive to the ends of the earth to bring a cup to Raleigh. And for the fact that he's going into the second year of his current 8-year contract, and he wants to keep building, and he wants to be that guy to kind of help lead the way. Because he even said, too, he loves his teammates. He wants to, win as a team, but he also knows too that he wants to be the greatest Carolina Hurricanes player to step on the ice. And already those 2 goals puts him at 98 for his career. That says a lot for Seth Jarvis. The fact that he's already at 98 career goals and he's early into his, if it's his first game into his 5th season, already at 98 goals. He's already 2 away from 100 already. Like, he could get 100 on Saturday against the Philadelphia Flyers, if anything, or he could do it against the Sharks. Like, there's a chance we could see within the first 3 games that Jarvis could have 100 goals. And the reason is because, like I said, he is just inevitable. Yeah, you got Sebastian Aho, who has a lot of his, leads a lot of historical points for the Hurricanes, holds a lot of records. But you can tell Seth Jarvis is going to be one of those guys that's going to be, he's probably going to be pushing for Aho's, stats as well. Even the fact that, they're not that far apart in terms of age, but they're both going, they're both into really long-term contracts. But you can just tell for Seth Jarvis just how much this means to him and how he really wants to help this team win. And like I said, put 3 shots, second most minutes out of all the forwards. First power play, the first power play with him, Aho, Ehlers, Svechnikov, and Gostisbehere, they were all over the Devils when they came to the power play. I think the first outside of the first one was cut short in 30 seconds. Their second and third opportunities, I think they had almost 7 shots on those 2 power plays alone. Sometimes you might get 1 or 2 shots for a power play. In 2 power plays, they had almost 7 shots combined. That's how dialed up that first unit was. And obviously it was the second unit that scored, but hey, you'll gladly take power play goals regardless of who did it. But you can tell that first group with Jarvis and his line, his first line mates, and of course with Svech and Gostisbehere, that group was really buzzing right from the jump. And you just have to feel so excited for him, just the fact that he was coming into the season, he wants to keep pushing for the Canadian Olympic team, because he made it to the 4 Nations after getting skipped out for the World Juniors, and it was a huge moment for him to play on the 4 Nations. But with the NHL guys going over to Italy in February, he wants to push for the Olympic roster. And having a night like this where you go get the game winner and then you throw in the dagger to ice the game, basically making a 5-3, that is going to make a huge statement to Hockey Canada. Be like, hey, he wants to be there. It's just you got to hope that he makes the Canadian Olympic team. There's going to be a lot of guys fighting for those roster spots, but the fact that Jarvis put himself on the stage, like I said, during 4 Nations, and the way he keeps playing, he might, if he keeps this up, there's a good shot he might be knocking on the door for a chance for the Olympic team. But right now he's currently on pace for 164 goals. I mean, obviously, it's going to be very tough for anyone to even reach any type of number that high. Usually you're looking at maybe 50 or 60 goals now being kind of the benchmark for a stellar season. But hey, 2 goals in your first game, your on pace is 162. Not bad. Or 164. Not bad, all things considered, but either way, you just know that early chemistry between him, Aho, and Ehlers is already pretty evident right from the jump. You saw it a little bit during practice. You saw it during a couple preseason games. But in this game in particular, you saw Ehlers finding Aho in some really good opportunities. Ehlers to Jarvis as well. Aho and Jarvis finding Ehlers at the right time too. You can tell that these 3 already have that chemistry, and you can tell even for the team introductions for opening night, Jarvis and Ehlers are already laughing and smiling with each other because this just the excitement of having Ehlers in Carolina is bringing a lot of juice to this team, and the fact that you saw that chemistry already early in the first game between those 3. It's only going to take a matter of time before all 3 of those guys are popping off, because Ehlers had his speed. He had a couple opportunities tonight. Al had a couple opportunities as well, but he did get 2 assists in the game. But you kind of just felt like that top line is going to work really well together. And the fact, too, they're all together on the top power play unit. And, the chemistry is only going to build from there as well. So either way, it's just very exciting to see where the Hurricanes are at. And, all lines are on Sebastian Aho because he's considered the face or the superstar of the team. But there's also Seth Jarvis, who is, I think, almost – it's going to be one of those guys that will be the other face of the franchise, and who's going to be another superstar. I think he is going to be a superstar if he already isn't, because just his marketability of his personality, the way he plays the game. Like I said, he's almost at 100 goals already, and he's it's his first game of his 5th season, and he's already knocking on the doorstep of 100 goals. And there's so much runway left for Seth Jarvis, so you love to see it. It's an exciting night for him. Because, like I said, you get Keandre Miller getting the locked-in guy of the game for the Hurricanes. He scores 2 goals in his debut. First star. Then you see Seth Jarvis gets the second star of the game. He scores 2 goals because, of course, he has to get the game winner and the basically the goal that ices the game, making it 5-3. So Seth Jarvis is just inevitable, and at some point he was going to make an impact, and he basically did. Now, that being said, who are the other contributors in the 6-3 win for the Hurricanes? Well, stick around. We'll talk about it here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. So, we talked about Keandre Miller's debut with the Hurricanes, how his impactful night got 2 goals, 1 on the power play. We also talked about Seth Jarvis and how he is he's pretty much inevitable. You know he's going to make an impact one way or another. If it's on the score sheet or off the score sheet, luckily it was on the score sheet. He scored 2 goals as well. But who else contributed in this game for the Hurricanes? Like I said, Sebastian Aho did get 2 assists, 21 minutes and 39 seconds of ice time, 22 shifts, 3 shots, 2 hits, 2 giveaways. Taylor Hall scored the first goal of the season for the Canes. Also did get an assist in this game, 2 points plus 1. Only played 12 minutes and 16 seconds, 17 shifts, 2 shots, 1 block. That tells you how impactful that fourth line is for the fact that they didn't get a whole lot of ice time, but they were still able to get some stuff done as well. William Carey got an assist. Jordan Martin got an assist as well. Eric Robinson made the game 6-3 with like 13 seconds left because he wanted to get on the scoring parade. And he finished with a +2, 10 minutes and 8 seconds of ice time, 15 shifts, 2 shots, 2 hits in the game. Jackson Blake did get an assist in this game. And Jesperi Kotkaniemi also got an assist, of course, with Jackson Blake. 15 minutes and 40 seconds, 19 shifts. He had 5 shots in the game, which basically led the entire team. He led the team in shots with 5. And that tells you he really wanted to score some goals. He did finish with a -2, but he really was trying to push it tonight for the Hurricanes. Jesperi Kotkaniemi did get an assist, like I said. Only 9 minutes and 46 seconds, but he did have 16 shifts. A little bit more. He had 1 more than Robinson, but he did have the lowest amount of time on the entire team, which is very surprising. The fact it was only 9:46, but Eric Robinson's 10:08 and William Carey's 11:07 wasn't that much more than Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Looking on the defense, have a night Shane Gostisbehere, 2 points with assists, +3, 20 minutes and 7 seconds, 25 shifts in the game, 1 shot, 1 block, 1 hit. Keandre Miller, like I said, we already talked about him. 4 shots, 1 block, 2 hits, 2 giveaways, the power play goal. Alexander Nikishin gets his first NHL point in his debut. He was also a +3 in this game, 15 minutes and 34 seconds, and was the lowest for defenseman. Of course, this is his first NHL game. Only 19 shifts compared to everyone who had 25, 28, and stuff like that. But, he had a shot, 2 blocks, 3 hits, and a giveaway. Not a bad first night for Alexander Nikishin. Did put in some work as well. But other guys who, contributed, maybe wasn't on the score sheet, but they were very impactful. Sean Walker, 26 shifts, 3 blocks, 3 hits. Jacob Slavin, 3 blocks as well, 2 giveaways, 20 minutes and 16 seconds. They were the only minuses of the game, though. Sean Walker -2, Jacob Slavin -1, but it's the first game, first time they're actually a pair. It's going to be one of those, nights where they're going to, it's a game where you have to kind of, still get kind of used to each other and figuring all that stuff out. Frederick Anderson saved 19 of 22, did give up 3 goals. Save percentage is .864, but when you only have 22 shots against you, you let 3 in. Not much you can really do there in terms of your save percentage. There was that backhand by Dougie Hamilton. Nothing you can do about that. Cody Glass, give him credit. He put a shot in the perfect 90. Nothing you can really do about that. It is what it is. But overall, not a bad night for Freddie. Hey, he kept the Hurricanes in the game. The Devils never got a lead. So you gotta kind of have to look at it from there. But overall, a lot of multi-point nights for some guys. Like I said, a couple guys got +3 on the third defensive pair that a lot of people were kind of wondering about. Yeah, your top pair of Slavin and Walker did go minus, but like I said, it's the first game. They're trying to get used to, each other a little bit more, and their role is a little bit different. But it's Jacob Slavin. I'm not worried. He's going to be a +16, 17 by the end of the season. It's one game, not that big of a deal. But it's just for the fact that you got, Blake with an assist, Carey with an assist, Kotkaniemi with an assist, and Kotkaniemi did pretty good on the face-offs too. And even speaking of face-offs, that even though Logan Stankoven didn't really get a point in this game, overall, 46.2%, not bad in your first game action as a center. 46.2 in the faceoff dot. Jordan Stahl, 52.4%. Jarvis did have a couple faceoffs. He went 100%. Sebastian Aho, 75, pretty good for him. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, though, did go 30.8%, so not the greatest night in the faceoff dot for Jesperi, but like I said, he only played 9 minutes and 46 seconds, did have 16 shifts in the game. But overall, I mean, if you still look at the rest of the numbers, too, in terms of the faceoff percentage, the Hurricanes did win 34 of 64 compared to the Devils, who won 30, but the Hurricanes at a 53.1%. So for a team that really focuses on faceoffs and make sure the wingers come in to help win the faceoff battle, they did that. You're over 50%. You won the faceoff battle. That's all you can really ask for out of a team that's led by Rod Brendamore. So overall, I mean, yeah, this game was pretty close for the most part going into the late minutes of the game. Like I said, just under 3 minutes left, you get you make it 4-3, 5-3, and then eventually 6-3. You did have multiple leads. Unfortunately, the Devils kind of scored pretty quick. After making it 2-1, they made it 2-2. After making it 3-2, they made it 3-3. And unfortunately, both of those goals that tied the game came within under 2 minutes of the ones that the Hurricanes scored. So unfortunately, leads weren't held very long for the most part. But then luckily, when the Hurricanes made a 4-3, empty netter, iced it, Robinson gets on the scoring parade, making it 6-3. So yeah, it was the score. I will say it's a little bit different of what the indication of the game was. So you would think that while they got blown out, it was just an empty netter, making a 5-3, and then a Robinson goal and Markstrom kind of caught Markstrom off guard, makes it 6-3. But either way, it doesn't matter. A win's a win. It doesn't matter if it's won by an inch or a mile. It's still a win. The Hurricanes are 1-0 to start the season, so you love to see it for the fact that they're already starting off on the right foot after kind of having a little bit of a dud last year against Tampa. But now you're 1-0 to start the season. You are home once again on Saturday against Philadelphia on Margaritaville night before you go on your long 2-week road trip for the State Fair. You go into Saturday, take care of business against Philadelphia, then you're 2-0 to start the season. Before you go out west, you have to play the Sharks, the Ducks, and then you got to worry about Colorado, Vegas, Dallas, and all that stuff. But right now, it's just taking one game at a time early. But you're up 1-0 in terms of the record on the season. You got a huge jump on the Devils already against a Metro Division opponent, that a team that a lot of people who've predicted to win the division. So now you're looking at that going, okay, that's one Metro team down. You got another Metro team on Saturday. You take care of business. You go 2-0. Now you go out west and you kind of start building on your road record. Road record last year wasn't great for the Hurricanes. Hopefully they kind of turn it around this year. Last season, they were tied in the NHL for most home wins with 31. Well, one's already done. It's opening night. Now we move forward. But great night overall. Like I said, K'Andre Miller, first star. Seth Jarvis, second star. Taylor Hall, third star. You love to see it. 6-3-1 on opening night against the Devils. And now we turn the page and look towards Saturday against the Flyers. But until then, guys, this will be the Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first look. For your second, go check out the Locked On NHL game night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL game night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is @LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zach Reminder, where if you click the link tree in my bios, you can find all my written content at thehockeywriters.com. and putting out a lot of stuff recently. Did the game day preview going into the opening night game. Also did the recap of the game as well. If you missed it or if you want to get more of the written side of things, go check that out. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to me like the show as well. Share with other Arcaniacs so they become everydayers just like you. But Hope everyone enjoyed the Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend, especially on Saturday when the Hurricanes take on the Flyers. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.